Alright, so tonight's lesson is lesson 104, and we are rounding decimal numbers to the nearest whole number. So what we are asking here first is we have $7.56. What we want to do is round this decimal number of 56 cents up to the nearest dollar, or down to the nearest dollar. So we're trying to round $7.56 down to $7 or up all the way to $8. So when we answer this question, we are rounding $7.56 to the nearest dollar. This is an example of rounding a decimal number to the nearest whole number. Using rounded numbers helps us to estimate. A number written with digits after the decimal point is not a whole number. So anything that has a decimal point, if it's not just 0 after it, we're dealing with less than a whole. It's not a whole number. We will learn how to find which of the two whole numbers is closest. A number line can help us understand this. So I drew a number line for us, and we have 7, a full whole 7, and a full whole 8 over here. Now, halfway in between is 7 and 5/10, or 7 1/2. And if we look at our $7.56, we see that we have 7 1/2, but we have 6/100 more than that. So actually what we would do is round $7.56 up to $8. So our answer would be $8 if we were rounding up to the nearest whole. Alright, we're going to try to round the next one. Example number 1. Round 7 6/10 to the nearest whole number. Now, I'm not going to draw a number line for this one, but see if you can figure out by yourself, find where your halfway mark is, and see if your decimal should be help round your whole number up or down. So you can pause for a second and see if you can do this one by yourself. Okay, the decimal number 7 6/10 is greater than 7, but less than 8. Halfway from 7 to 8 is 7.5, or 7 5/10. I'm just going to write that down. My halfway point is 7 5/10, okay? Since 7 6/10 is more than halfway, we're going to round 7 6/10. We're going to round that up to a full 8, and that would be our answer. You could use a number line if it helps you to look at it, to see, but this is pretty, we've been rounding a lot in 5th grade, so I think this is something that we're really good at. We're combining all of it. We're combining our whole numbers and our decimals and our fractions now. Alright, estimate the product, you should know what that means right away, of 8 7/800 and 6 1200. Okay, see if you can do that. So you need to first round both of those numbers to numbers that you can work with, and then you're going to multiply them. The product is an answer to a multiplication problem. So we're multiplying these two numbers. So, rounding decimal numbers with 2 decimal places is similar to rounding with money, or when we're dealing with money. The decimal number 8 7/800 rounds to the whole number 9. Because if we look, 7800, and we're dealing with 8 and 9, 78 is higher than 50. So we are rounding that up to 8. So I write my 8. Oh, sorry, we're rounding that up to 9. That's my fault. I was looking at the whole number. Rounding that up to 9. And then if we look at $6.12, we're going to round that back down to 6 because we're not quite to that 50 mark yet. So I'm going to round that down to 6. Now when we do this, we just have a simple multiplication problem, and the answer for the product is 54. Alright, now for example 3. Val has a flower garden in her backyard. This rectangle represents the dimensions of the garden. What is a reasonable estimate of its area? Alright, estimate. So we know that we're going to be rounding our numbers. We're not going to find the exact answer. So what we have to do is round our two numbers here. So I look and I have 12 2/10. Well, my halfway mark is 5/10. Is 2/10 less? Yes. So I'm going to round that back down to 12. 7 and 8/10. Well, my halfway mark is 5. Is 8 larger than 5? Yes. So I'm going to round that up to 8. So 12 meters, 8 meters. Now, how do I find area? You should know this by now. I'm going to write it for you up here. Area equals length times width. So I have my length times my width. And when you do 12 meters times 8 meters, you will get 96 square meters. Don't forget your squared part, your square meters. And our last example for tonight. Okay, the dimensions. Right now we're looking at the dimensions of a personal storage space in this diagram. What is the approximate, again another keyword like estimate, approximate, about, what is the approximate volume of the storage space in cubic meters? Alright, so we have our length, our width, and our height. And we did this lesson about a couple days ago. Okay, and when we are dealing with volume, we are doing, volume is length times width times height all together. Okay, so we need to let's first work with our length. 2 84 hundredths of a meter, okay? So if we think of our halfway mark being 50, is 84 more or less than 50? It's more. So we are going to round 2 84 hundredths up to 3. Okay? 3 times. And then we have our next one. I don't know if you can see. It's 3 4 hundredths, so 3.04. Okay? And we are going to round that, obviously, that is really close to 3. We're going to round that back down to 3. And then we have our height. And we have 2 69 hundredths. And that is just a little bit above 50, but it still is. So we're going to take that and round it to 3. So now, when we do 3 meters, I guess you could put your units there, meters. 3 meters times 3 meters times 3 meters. You will end up getting 27. This is equal to your volume. 27 cubic. Now we can use CU. I know some of you have asked if there's an abbreviation. Cubic meters. Remember, we have just plain like inches and feet and miles. Then we have square inches, square feet, and square miles. And this is cubic miles or inches or meters. All right, in your lesson practice. Round each number to the nearest dollar or whole number.